The only 4 dumbbell exercises you need for enormous glutes. Many men, unfortunately, still make the mistake of thinking they don't need to train glutes, considering it women's stuff or a muscle without importance for male aesthetics. However, they are fundamental for practically all movements that involve the legs and hips, from walking to running, jumping, and lifting weight. Because they are so voluminous, well-developed glutes are also true calorie-burning machines. The more muscle mass you have, the higher your basal metabolism, which means you burn more calories even at rest. Additionally, strong glutes are essential for preventing back pain and improving posture, as they stabilize the pelvis and support the lumbar spine. And for those men who train mainly thinking about aesthetic appeal to the opposite sex, here's a fact. Women do notice a well-developed male bottom. That's why today you'll see the only 4 exercises you need to develop impressive glutes, using only dumbbells. Before we begin, please leave in the comments your name and the city from where you're watching our content. Exercise 4. Bulgarian split squat with dumbbells. Although it's famous for working the quadriceps, with the right techniques, you can transform it into a powerful tool for glute growth. The beauty of this exercise lies in its ability to isolate each side of the body, correcting muscle imbalances that many of us have without realizing. When we perform bilateral exercises like the traditional squat, our stronger side tends to compensate for the weaker side. The Bulgarian split squat eliminates this possibility. To perform the Bulgarian split squat correctly, position yourself with your back to a bench or stable platform. Place one foot behind you on the bench, with the top of your foot resting on the surface. Hold a dumbbell in each hand and keep them at your sides. The front leg should be at a distance that allows your knee to align with your ankle when you descend. Now here's the secret to making this exercise really activate your glutes instead of just the quadriceps. Lean your torso slightly forward, about 15 to 20 degrees. Research shows that this simple change can significantly increase glute activation. As you descend into the movement, focus on going as deep as possible while maintaining proper technique. A study published in the Journal of Strength and Conditioning Research demonstrated that the greater the range of motion in the squat, the greater the glute activation. However, never sacrifice form for depth. Descend as far as is comfortable without feeling pain or losing balance. Another fundamental detail that many ignore: consciously contract your glutes throughout the entire movement, especially in the rising phase. This mind-muscle connection may seem like a small detail, but electromyography studies show that conscious contraction can increase muscle activation by up to 25%. Imagine gaining 25% more results with the same exercise just by thinking about the muscle you're working. The most common errors I see people making include letting the front knee collapse inward, which can cause injuries, not descending enough due to lack of mobility or balance, and not maintaining proper torso posture. To avoid knee collapse, imagine you're trying to push the ground outward with your front foot. You'll know you're performing the Bulgarian split squat correctly when you feel an intense burn in the lateral and upper part of the glute, not just in the front of the thigh. If you're feeling mainly the quadriceps, adjust your posture by leaning your torso more forward. For optimal results, I recommend 3 sets of 10 to 12 repetitions on each leg. Use a weight that makes the last 2 repetitions challenging, but without compromising form. Rest 90 seconds between sets. As you get stronger, gradually increase the weight of the dumbbells, not the number of repetitions. Exercise 3. Hip thrust with dumbbells. The hip thrust has revolutionized glute training in the last decade. Although it's traditionally performed with a barbell, the dumbbell version offers unique advantages that many practitioners are unaware of. A revolutionary study from 2015 published in the Journal of Applied Biomechanics demonstrated that the hip thrust caused double the activation of the gluteus maximus compared to the traditional back squat. That's right, double. Another more recent study published in the Journal of Sports Science and Medicine confirmed these findings, showing that the hip thrust favors greater glute activation compared to more conventional exercises like squats and deadlifts. A particularly interesting aspect was revealed in a 2018 study, which found that while the barbell deadlift was superior in hamstring activation, the hip thrust still provided the greatest activation of the gluteus maximus. This is because the hip thrust places the glutes under maximum tension exactly at the point of greatest contraction, which is the secret to accelerated muscle growth. Now, about using dumbbells instead of the traditional barbell. The first advantage is practicality. You don't need specific equipment like a hip thrust support, just a common bench. Additionally, the dumbbell positioned over the hip allows for a more natural weight distribution, reducing the discomfort that many feel with the barbell. To correctly perform the dumbbell hip thrust, sit on the floor with your back against a bench, knees bent and feet planted on the floor at shoulder width. Place a heavy dumbbell on your hips, holding it to keep it stable. A cushion or folded mat under the dumbbell can significantly increase comfort. The movement begins in the seated position with the glutes on the floor. Push through your heels, contracting the glutes to raise your hips until your body forms a straight line from knees to shoulders. At the top of the movement, your knees should be at a 90-degree angle. Pause for 1 to 2 seconds at the top with maximum glute contraction. Common errors include excessively arching the lower back, which transfers the work to the back muscles, not rising enough, which limits glute activation, or using momentum instead of controlling the movement. To avoid these errors, keep your abdomen slightly contracted throughout the exercise. Focus on raising your hips through glute strength and maintain a controlled pace. You'll know you're doing it correctly when you feel an intense and localized contraction in the glutes without discomfort in the lower back. At the top of the movement, you should be able to feel the glutes completely contracted, as if they were tight as a rock. If you're feeling mainly the thighs or lower back, adjust your technique. To maximize results, perform 4 sets of 12 to 15 repetitions. The higher number of repetitions compared to the Bulgarian split squat is because the glutes have a higher proportion of slow twitch fibers, which respond better to higher volumes. Use a weight that allows you to complete all repetitions with good form. Also try varying the position of your feet. Placing them wider activates more of the lateral part of the glutes, while bringing them closer focuses more on the lower part. Before we continue to exercise 2, don't forget to subscribe to the channel. Having constant access to correct and science-based information is what will help you continuously improve your body without risk of injury. Exercise 2, Sumo squat with dumbbells. The sumo squat is often underestimated in glute training, but it's actually one of the most effective variations for targeting the glutes from a unique angle, especially the lateral and lower parts that many conventional exercises can't fully activate. The distinctive characteristic of the sumo squat is the wide position of the feet and the external rotation of the hips, inspired by the posture of sumo wrestlers. This biomechanical configuration completely changes the muscle recruitment compared to traditional squats, allowing greater activation of the adductors, gluteus medius, and gluteus minimus. A study conducted at the University of Wisconsin compared muscle activation in different types of squats and found that the wider sumo stance resulted in 20% more glute activation compared to conventional squats. This is because the wider position creates greater torque at the hip, requiring more work from the hip extensor muscles, mainly the glutes. To perform the dumbbell sumo squat correctly, start by holding a heavy dumbbell with both hands vertically, as if it were a bell. Position your feet much wider than shoulder width, with toes pointing outward at approximately 45 degrees. This external rotation is crucial. It pre-activates the glutes even before you start the movement. Keep your chest up, spine neutral, and core engaged. Descend as if you were sitting between your legs, not backward as in conventional squats. The dumbbell should descend in a straight line between your legs, with elbows positioned on the inside of your knees. Descend until your thighs are parallel to the floor, or lower if your mobility allows. On the way up, the key is to push the ground away through your heels and the outer part of your feet, while actively opening your knees against an imaginary resistance. This detail of opening the pelvic floor, as some trainers describe it, maximizes glute recruitment in the concentric phase of the movement. If you want to intensify the movement even more, control the descent speed, taking about 3 seconds, and make a brief pause at the bottom before rising explosively. This technique, known as eccentric tempo, increases metabolic stress in the glutes, a key factor for muscle hypertrophy. The most common errors include not opening the feet enough, allowing the knees to collapse inward, or not descending enough due to lack of hip mobility. To correct these problems, first try the movement without weight to find the ideal foot position. Practice the feeling of pushing the knees outward throughout the movement, and work on hip mobility exercises separately. If your shins are perpendicular to the floor when viewed from the side, that's also a good indicator of proper technique. For this exercise, I recommend 3 sets of 8 to 10 repetitions with significant weight. The sumo squat allows you to use heavier loads than the Bulgarian split squat, so take advantage of this mechanical advantage. Rest 2 to 3 minutes between sets for complete recovery, as this is a compound movement that requires a lot of energy. Exercise 1. Romanian deadlift with dumbbells. The Romanian deadlift is perhaps the most effective exercise for developing the connection between glutes and hamstrings, creating that harmonious curve in the back of the body that defines an athletic physique. Contrary to what many think, this exercise is not just for hamstrings. When performed correctly, it powerfully recruits the gluteus maximus in its full extension. What makes the Romanian deadlift with dumbbells particularly valuable is the freedom of movement it offers compared to the barbell version. Dumbbells allow for a natural rotation of the wrists and a slightly more lateral trajectory, which can reduce stress on the lower back while maintaining tension in the glutes. Additionally, the dumbbell version allows greater control over the depth of the movement, making it more accessible for people with mobility limitations. To perform the Romanian deadlift with dumbbells correctly, start standing with feet at hip width, holding a dumbbell in each hand at your sides. Maintain a slightly bent knee and never hyperextended throughout the movement. This is not a straight leg exercise. Initiate the movement by pushing your hips backward, as if you were trying to touch a wall behind you with your bottom. As your hips move backward, the dumbbells should descend close to your legs, not in front of your body. Continue descending until you feel a significant stretch in your hamstrings, usually when the dumbbells are at mid-shin height or slightly below the knees, depending on your mobility. The upper body should be almost parallel to the floor at the lowest point. Here's the secret that transforms the Romanian deadlift into a powerful glute builder. In the rising phase, focus on pushing your hips forward, not on lifting your back. Imagine that your glutes are the engine driving the movement, strongly contracting them to return to the starting position. This focus on hip extension, rather than spine extension, is what maximizes glute recruitment. The most common errors in the Romanian deadlift include rounding the back, not pushing the hips back enough, or bending the knees too much, turning it into a partial squat. To avoid these errors, keep your chest up and spine neutral throughout the movement. Focus on the hinge feeling at the hip, and practice first with light weight to master the movement pattern. You'll know you're doing it correctly when you feel an intense stretch in the back of your thighs during the descent and a powerful contraction in your glutes during the ascent. There should be a clear sensation that your glutes are pulling your trunk back to the vertical position. If you're feeling mainly your back working or pain in the lumbar region, review your technique immediately. For optimal results, perform 3 sets of 10 to 12 repetitions with moderate to heavy weight. This exercise allows you to use considerable loads when the technique is perfect, but it's better to start light and progress gradually. Focus on movement quality over weight quantity, especially in the first weeks. The Romanian deadlift also offers an additional benefit that goes beyond aesthetics. It deeply strengthens the posterior chain muscles, improving posture and reducing the risk of lower back pain. In a world where we spend hours sitting, this functional benefit should not be underestimated. To incorporate these 4 exercises into your routine, I suggest dividing them into 2 weekly workouts. On the first day, combine the Bulgarian split squat with the hip thrust. On the second glute training day of the week, do the Sumo squat followed by the Romanian deadlift. This organization allows for adequate recovery while maintaining sufficient frequency to stimulate consistent muscle growth. Remember that muscle development doesn't just happen in the gym, but in the kitchen and in bed too. Make sure to consume enough protein and try to get at least 8 hours of quality sleep to maximize your gains. And if besides enormous glutes with dumbbells, you also want to learn how to build giant triceps to give that volume in your arm, using only dumbbells, we've left a video showing a wonderful triceps workout using only dumbbells. Don't miss it. Thank you for watching this far, and may God bless you, my friend.